Welcome to Run With It, BC's only running, fitness, and health show. On today's show, we were in conversation with Ben West, co-founder of the Great Climate Race. Also, we have our Train Like a Pro segment with NHL player Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, so stay tuned for that. We also have our Doctor's Corner, but first, let's go to our in-studio interview. Kim Vopni is known as the fitness doula. She helps women prepare for and recover from pregnancy and birth so they can return to the activities they love with strength and confidence. She focuses on the pelvic floor and abdomen as there are two parts of the body that face the biggest changes in pregnancy and birth that can leave the postpartum body in a compromised state. She's here today to give us some tips on pelvic health and running. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you.
So what is a fitness doula?
Well, it's sort of a term that I coined myself. So I had fitness training background as a personal trainer, and I incorporated that into my own preparation for pregnancy. And then I took doula training. And what a doula does is they're meant to support the women through the birth process. So while I don't attend births, what I do is take the support aspect of what a doula does, and I combine it with fitness principles to help women prepare their bodies for birth and help them recover postpartum.
So having a fitness background is helpful in helping women with pregnancy and birth and getting back on track, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you hear it said many times that birth is like a marathon, and it really is. It's an incredibly physical event, and really the need to prepare and recover is sort of overlooked. People take for granted, because it's a natural process, that they can do it. Millions of people have done it before them and they'll be fine. But what I do is I take the principle of specificity from fitness, where they say if you're training for a marathon, you should run and you should practice for the event that you're going to be participating in. And while we can't necessarily practice childbirth over and over again in preparation, we can find exercise that we can do that mimics labor and birth positions and get us strong for that event that will also then help us recover better postpartum.
And you've been through it.
I have been through it twice. Yep.
Twice?
Yes.
So you have lots of experience, and so there are many benefits, right?
Yes.
And do a lot of people know about it, the prepare to push method?
No. It's something that I've been doing the workshops, I guess, for about 6 or so years, and it's been a bit of a slow process. I think because what I talk about is sometimes considered taboo, or really people aren't quite sure what exactly it is that I do. That it's been a little bit slow to gain some traction, but social media certainly is getting the conversation out there, because the pelvic floor, which we have a couple of models here for you, and the abdomen, really people know about the abdomen because obviously it's visible, we see it, but the pelvic floor is something we don't see, and we don't think about accessing those muscles, but they need to be trained just like others in the body.
So Kim, what do we see here? I mean, and running does help, right? That's one of the benefits you were mentioning earlier.
Yes,
right?
but I have a disclaimer for that.
Okay. So what do we see here?
So we have, I brought 2 models of a female pelvis, one which doesn't have the ligaments and muscles into it. And I brought that one simply to show that our pelvis is a series of bones that are attached at joints. So we have a pubic joint, or pubic bone as people call it, in the front. And here's our tailbone. We have the sacrum, and we have the SI joint, which a lot of people actually know what the SI joint is. Anybody who deals with low back pain typically knows what an SI joint is. But our pelvis actually has some mobility in it. Now, this is exaggerated, but in pregnancy and birth, the mobility in our pelvis is heightened. Our hormones and ligament laxity make more space for the baby in preparation for delivery. So there's a little bit more movement that happens in those joints. So while I do like running as a form of exercise, and it can be a good pelvic floor exercise as well, if you lack stability in your pelvis, and also as your center of gravity changes during pregnancy and you have additional weight on the pelvic floor muscles, I tend to advise women to take it out of their repertoire in their 2nd, 3rd trimester and wait till about 4 to 6 months at least postpartum until they add it back in and get their green light to return to running from their pelvic floor physiotherapist.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, how do people find out about it? I mean, you're doing it, but are there a lot of fitness doulas out there?
So far, I'm sort of the only one. There are other people who are doulas and personal trainers. They certainly are. So in terms of getting the message out, social media, as I mentioned before, is helping get that conversation started. Midwives are starting to understand the impact of the process of birth on the pelvic floor, and also what's happening in the abdomen, and why it's not just aesthetics, but it's actually function. So once the doctors and the midwives start to hear more functional and prevention, they'll pay a little bit more attention, and the idea is hopefully they'll start to get the conversation out with their clients as well.
Right, and Kim, it's important to be healthy, right? And not only like following a healthy lifestyle and doing that, but can you tell me about this?
Yes,
right?
yes. So let's talk about
right
the pelvic
in front of me.
floor, right in front of us. So as I mentioned, this is a model of the pelvis without the ligaments and the muscles. But this is one that shows you where the pelvic floor is. So here's our pelvis, what it normally would look like. We have our hip bones, as people call them. We have the sacrum, which is near the back here. And at the end of the sacrum, we have the tailbone. And that's an attachment point for the pelvic floor muscles, as are the sits bones, as people call them, and the pubic bone or the pubic joint at the front there as well. So the pelvic floor muscles act sort of like a bowl, and they fill in that space. It's not just one muscle, it's layers of muscle. It's a lot of nerves, it's a huge blood supply, and the muscles function to support the pelvis, as we mentioned, where those attachment points are. The spine, because of its attachment point to the tailbone. It also holds the internal organs in place. Now, there's only one organ in here, really, which is the uterus, but also the bladder would be resting in there as well. So the bladder, the uterus, and the rectum are held in place by the pelvic floor as well. So really, those muscles play a huge role in so much of our stability and our posture. I saw you stand up a little straighter there.
Yes.
And our continence, our sex life. So they're really, really important, but not a lot of attention is paid to them until there's an issue. So you don't really think a lot about your pelvic floor until there's a problem, and then it becomes one of the only things you can think about because it affects so much of our life.
Like a tear, right? There's a tear.
Yeah, so when we're pregnant, obviously the load that those muscles carry increases as the baby grows. And because our center of gravity also shifts, the position of our pelvis changes as well. And that can affect the function of those muscles and their ability to hold the organs in place or maintain our continence. It can influence the way our body, or low back specifically, would feel. So it's a really important part of the body that we really need to pay more attention to, and ideally need to know about before we even get pregnant. But if we can get them when we're pregnant, that's better than waiting until afterwards.
Exactly,
Yeah.
catch it before. And then like tips from new mothers, just see you, right?
Yeah, so one of the biggest tips right now, women have their baby and they're pretty quick to get up and go. There's a lot of, supermom mentality, and we're influenced by, of course, media and the magazines where you see celebrities back in their skinny jeans or what have you. So there's a lot of pressure to all of a sudden just, I can do it, I'm back to normal, I'm out walking, I'm out running. But if you return to especially high impact activity too quickly postpartum, then that stability that I was talking about, you have lost that in your pregnancy. And when you add on impact and running, it can kind of set you up for a little bit of issue. So I'll show you one quick example as well. The other influence is what's actually happening in the abdominal wall. So this is just a quick little visual. I'm all of a sudden going to be very pregnant here. So in pregnancy, the six-pack muscles, so if you can think of the elusive six-pack that everybody's searching for, are two straps of muscle that run from our sternum, and they attach down here at the pubic joint that we were talking about, okay? And as our belly grows, the connective tissue that holds those two six-pack muscles in place actually starts to thin, and what happens is because that connective tissue has thinned, the muscles actually move apart from one another. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So then at the end of my pregnancy, I've given birth, and I'm still left with that separation and that stretched connective tissue. Now, because of the attachment points here on the pubic joint, this influences what's happening underneath and down below. So if I'm lacking stability here and my muscles aren't where they used to be, the tissue's all stretched out, it's also influencing my pelvis. So if I get back to running or high impact activity too quickly, you're kind of setting yourself up for disaster. So my tip, to get back to what you asked, is at your 6-week point, when typically women are looking for that green light to go back to regular activity, I say it's your green light to go see a pelvic floor physiotherapist and get your pelvic floor assessed for function. And they'll probably find some areas that you need to work on. They'll give you a protocol, a recovery plan. I also help, once that initial stage is done, incorporate your pelvic floor into movement, healthy movement that's safe and effective, so that you can go back to running. But to go there as your first exercise choice is not something that I advise.
That's awesome. And now let's talk about your book, Prepare to Push, right?
Prepare to Push, yes.
And it's coming out next month.
Next month we should have it already, yes.
Yeah, so what inspired you to write the book?
Well, about 6 years ago, I started offering a workshop called Prepare to Push. And again, it's where I combined the fitness training I had with the doula principles, support aspect, that type of thing. And it took off, and lots of people were finding it very helpful, and it's information that they hadn't heard before. I offer it also as a one-on-one consultation as well, but more people from around the world were saying, how can I, does anybody teach it over here? How can I get access to it? So I really needed to create a more accessible venue for people to be able to get the information. So that's what prompted the book.
And Kim, I look forward to reading it. And congratulations
Thank you very
on the
much.
book launch. And do you know when it'll be? Like where? Like you'll be doing the book launch?
Right now, I'm just trying to secure a space. It will be in Vancouver.
Yes.
I'm trying to find sort of a maternity type location.
Okay.
We're targeting right now October 15th. So if all goes as planned, it'll be in October. It'll be an evening event, and we'll have a celebration and some book signings as well.
It's awesome. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we'd like to have you come back.
I would love to come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now let's go to our Train Like a Pro segment. Check this out.
Kind of stay in shape, and come into camp feeling fit and be ready to go. So you got to take it upon yourself to really stay in shape and make sure that you don't fall behind doing something. This summer I still do some running. It's more like hockey specific stuff. I mean, there still is a running aspect to our training and stuff, so I think it helps you stay in shape. Different stuff. Sometimes it's more running, sometimes it's more just lifting, and then usually I'll have a massage or some physio after, and then I'll come skate around 2, just do this kind of thing, and work on skill stuff, and then done for the day. So.
And now let's go to our conversation with Ben West, co-founder of the Great Climate Race. Ben, what is your involvement with the Great Climate Race?
I co-founded the Great Climate Race with my partner Mari. It was really an idea actually that came out of running in the East Side 10K last year. And I realized that I was surrounded by all these very positive people who were raising money for good causes, and none of them were the same people who were coming to the rallies and other events that I was involved in organizing. I'd been looking for a while for a way to sort of shift the focus of environmental campaign work in BC from a focus primarily on problems like pipelines and tankers and coal mines and things like that, all really important stuff. But for many of us, there's this kind of hunger for solutions.
So you don't have to be a runner, so your event's for non-runners as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think our run will be sort of in the same category as something like the Run for the Cure, probably about 60% I would estimate will be sort of more mission driven than runners. It is a nice flat course, and we're a chip timed event. Sports Stats is going to make this a great opportunity for anybody who wants to make their personal best on a nice day in November. But it also, for many other people, will just be an opportunity to be part of a good cause. For some people, it'll be their first time running a 10K, which is kind of a neat thing that we've provided an opportunity for people to get a little healthier and sort of do something good for themselves while they do something for the planet. But also for many people, it'll just be a nice walk around Stanley Park, and we're trying to make it interesting for everybody. We're going to have art displays and some theatrical stuff happening.
And one more question, Ben. Can you register still for the event?
Yeah, you can
Yes,
definitely
good.
still
Okay.
register for the event. Our website is thegreatclimaterace.com. You can register there. You can also join teams or volunteer. We've got everything from small business owners in the Great Climate Race to the Solar Warriors is a group in the Great Climate Race. There's Moms for Climate Action. There's all kinds of fun teams.
Wow. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thank you.
And now let's go to Dr. Zickler with Doctor's Corner. Welcome to Doctor's Corner. With me in the studio is Dr. Paul Zickler, and he's here. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Now we're going to talk about healthy eating. And what are some tips?
Well, we're going to be talking about nutrition, I'm sure, in terms of the whole general topic. But one of the things that is really interesting to me is how to eat mindfully. And on my way here today, walking through all these beautiful truck concessions and beautiful restaurants with their patios, is the people. A lot of people are eating standing. They're busy talking and trying to eat at the same time, or they're rushing in and grabbing something to pick up, and they're quickly sitting on your benches out here and jamming it down their throat, and away they go. and so that's sort of what I'm thinking about in terms of mindful eating and how important that is. And so when I say mindful eating, it's sort of making eating pleasure, and it's not using food as a device that can work opposite in your body. So you're not using it to cover up some depression, or not using it to some stress. You're using it because it's a joyful thing to do. It's something that you really enjoy, and that you're not going to grab for something, for food, if it's in reaction to some stress. Because if you really are mindful of your food and really enjoy your food, that's not going to come into your mind to use that as a crutch for some other problems that you're facing. And in that way, you're less likely to become overweight, you're less likely to develop diabetes, you're less likely to be hypertensive, and you're more likely to feel better and do all the other things that create wellness. And so what do I mean by mindful eating? Our family are foodies. Yeah. I have 4 children. They're all married now, and they all like to cook. And they really take an enjoyment. And it doesn't matter. They're all working. And so each of them have a different sort of an approach. Mm-hmm. So one family where they're both working, they only have a short period of time, and they have children. So they, on the weekend, make a list, think of what they're going to eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then make that an enjoyable trip. They buy all the things that they want to and make them, put them in the freezer, and they're all ready. Or have all the ingredients ready. It's things that they can put together very quickly that are nutritious. And so then there's no guilt that you're not feeding your children properly, and they're not getting the right nutrition. It's all thought out. Some of my other children don't think quite that far ahead, but they still have the ingredients to make things and have thought ahead in terms of a go-to. Tonight I only have 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to make tacos, and I've got the things to do that and all the condiments that go along with it. But what's really important in that is that you take the time to enjoy that food. So you look at the food and say, this is an enjoyable experience. And so I like a lot of green vegetables and fruits, vegetables and some protein, either in some beef or pork or cheese. And I have it in a container, but when I go to work and have my lunch, I put that on a plate and I arrange it to make it look good. And I have my little vial of balsamic and olive oil. And the balsamic is different. The balsamic and the oils are, I mean, you can get all kinds of different olive oils now. And each time I make it a little different flavor and pour it over, and it looks good. I really enjoy looking at it. I enjoy the smell of the balsamic, and I enjoy the smell of the olive oil, and I enjoy the textures of what I'm eating. And so you get an appreciation of what you're eating. You're mindfully eating. And so you're less likely to choose unhealthy foods, because when you're under stress and you're in a hurry, you choose grains and sweets and things that are salty, things that you can grab.
Like chips.
Yeah, chips, exactly. And those things are themselves addictive. Yeah. And so it's like a vicious cycle. So you got to get back to being mindful. And when you're doing that, you're more likely to have a conversation with someone else who's mindful eating their lunch. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be by yourself and focus on but you're reducing your stress by having conversation. So the whole thing is a mindful, meditative, almost meditative experience, if you allow it to be. And the same with your children. You know, they've got their schedule. They've got the baseball. They've got the basketball. They've got this and that. And I've got to drive. I've got to pick up so-and-so. But if you just set that half hour aside, your meals are ready and you're relaxed. It's amazing what kind of positive effects that has.
Right, and it's, it just requires planning, and it's better for your digestive system, right, when you chew your food slowly. But what about, I read, you have your food and you take breaks, put your fork down, and that's sort of between bites, I should say, and that kind of, hey, you're full, right? Because it's like sometimes when you're having your fork close to you, you're eating and eating, and you're full, but you're not knowing it. Is that?
Yeah, that really is important to do that, and that's being mindful. But the big thing, if I can go back to it, is not getting into the habit of using food to solve other neurotic symptoms. And so whether it's the stress and that this is your fallback, is going to have something to eat, and then you're fighting yourself. There is that really caramel yogurt in the freezer, and it's in your head, and I'm not going to have it. But then in half an hour, you're in that freezer, you open it up, and before you know it, you eat the whole thing. Mm-hmm. All right? And similarly, when I used to work night shift, evening shift, I'd come home at 11:30, and it was a stressful night, and I probably didn't get enough to eat during the evening. So I got home, and I started putting stuff out. Well, it was never, ever enough. I could continue eating and eating and eating because it was solving my stress. Mm-hmm. The stress that I've been carrying for the last 8 hours or 10 hours is being solved by my eating, as opposed to just eating because I need some nourishment.
Well, it's a lifestyle change, and it's hard to do, but as we were talking about, it's about planning and mindful eating, and that's something that is important, and it reduces diseases too, and being obese and
yes,
et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. Because once you're being a mindful eater, you're going to make a lot healthier choices in terms of what you're putting inside yourself.
Now, if you're an athlete and you're always hungry, at least.
Well, again, you know what? I think again, it is the athlete will, if they pay attention to their body, will know that if he uses food for nourishment, he'll know, and he'll have less tendency to try to using food as a default for other problems that they may be facing.
And water, drinking water helps curb your appetite.
Yeah, if that's what you need.
Yes.
It's if you have a healthy appetite, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a healthy appetite, you'll know when you're hungry you should eat, and when you're not hungry that you're not going to eat.
Yes. And Dr. Zickler, if you know you have a problem with food, I mean, you can see someone about it. And
yes, and it's right now there are a lot of really functional nutritionists that are available, holistic nutritionists that would really provide excellent sort of counseling on the whole diet issue and the use of food.
Just making sure that you eat well, but a muffin looks nutritious, but it isn't really. It's full of.
It can be. It can be if you choose the right ingredients. Well, there are many good bakeries now that are becoming lifestyle conscious, as well as of a lot of our food choices. But what you have to remember is that 80% of our health is depending on what you eat. So 80%, and 20% is exercise, so what we do. So what we eat and what we put in ourselves and what we do accounts for 100% of our health.
It's a full circle.
Yeah.
On that note, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure.
We'll have you come back.
Good. I'm looking forward to it.
Charlene, tell us about the Turkey Trot.
All right. Well, the Granville Island Turkey Trot is a long-standing event in the community, and it's will be in its 18th year this year on Granville Island, which is we're just opposite here, and a fabulous family-friendly event. We've added a kids run and a preschooler dash this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so it's a beautiful 10K around Falls Creek, and it's been a long-standing event in the community, and people come out because it is a different kind of feel. It's it's a fun event.
You run off turkey.
You run off turkey, exactly. Kind of celebrating Thanksgiving, and we have 2 charity partners this year. The Food Bank and Arts Umbrella are 2 fabulous charities. So money's raised for them, and it'll be fun. So Thanksgiving weekend in Granville Island.
This is the place to be.
This is the place to be, yeah.
And all running abilities, right? You don't have to be a fast runner.
No, it is really a family-friendly event, and it's really for those who want to come out, sort of, run off that turkey and, do a good 10K, but it's certainly not necessarily about, a personal best or beating a record. So it's definitely a much more of a recreational run.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for watching. If you have a question or comment about today's show, go to our website on the screen. Until next time, run with it. Run With It is sponsored by YesWellness.com, Kim Vopni from Pelvic Wellness, the Vancouver Sun Run presented by Blue Shore Financial, and the Vancouver International Marathon Society.